Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's going on? I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are having a good day. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins, and welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. If you're Black and intelligent, I want you to say loud and say, I'm smart and I'm proud. And I
I'm
want
smart
you,
and I'm proud.
that's right, say it loud. Yeah, and so, everybody, I want you guys to know who I have here. You all have seen her before. Her name is Nicole Price, and Nicole is a brilliant woman. She is very knowledgeable about situations in the workplace and all kinds of other stuff. And she's also the author of a great book called The Lively Paradox, right? Is that the name of the book, Nicole?
That's correct.
Yes. And before I begin, I'd like to welcome my good friend Nicole Price. How you doing today, sister?
You know what? I'm fantastic. I'm doing great. Happy New Year, Doc.
Same to you. Same to you. All right. So I want to say hi real quick to everybody that's in here. I see Todd Webb and Libra Smith and Vic FM and Lakeisha Morehouse. And also some of you are tuning in from the Black Financial Channel. That's theblackfinancialchannel.com. So if you want to talk about Black financial news and commentary or news and financial commentary from a Black perspective, then you can go to theblackfinancialchannel.com. Make sure you subscribe, support Black media. We're trying to take this thing over. So let's get started. Let's jump into the conversation. Now, I talked about this a little bit earlier, and I told you guys I was going to bring Nicole in so we could kind of hear another point of view in addition to my own about this thing with Tavis Smiley. Now, those of you in the chat, give me a yes or no if you are familiar at all with the ongoing feud between Tavis Smiley and PBS. Yes or no? Give me a yes or no in the chat. I see David Smith is in here from Fort Wayne, Indiana. True Reliance, Black Power. Okay, Miss Curly Girl says yes. Okay, Ricardo, yes. I got to get that book. Love Dr. Boyce. Always good info. Thank you very much. I appreciate that compliment. Okay, I see some yeses and nos in here. So maybe Nicole, maybe what we can do is before we dive in, I'll do a quick little recap, and then I'm gonna let you just kind of take off because they kind of know what I think. Like they kind of know how I think, and I want them to hear how you think because that's more important. But basically, Tavis Smiley is in a mess. Basically, it's a messy situation. About I guess maybe a year ago, a little bit more. PBS cut his show off the air and let him go kind of out of the blue over some what they considered inappropriate behavior in the workplace. Now, Tavis didn't take it sitting down. He actually went on. He went into the national media and gave his side of the story and fought back. He sued PBS and said, "This is nonsense. This is BS. You know, it was consensual. I didn't. You know, he didn't assault anybody." And so PBS countersued him, and now PBS also in I guess in a it's funny like they're accusing him of retaliating against people in the workplace, so-called whistleblowers, if you want to call it that. But they're in a way you could argue they're retaliating against him because what they've done in their retaliation to his alleged retaliation is they've actually released their I guess private investigations of his so-called workplace inappropriate behavior. So Nicole, did I give a decent summary there? Did you want to add anything to that based on what you know?
That's a decent summary from what we have from the media reports.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask Nicole's expert or Nicole's opinion on this as an expert. And as we move forward, do me a favor, please hit the thumbs up button right now. If you can, on the count of three, everybody hit the thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed. So I'm going to count to three, thumbs up, subscribe, notification bell. Also 1, 2, 3, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Subscribe, notification bell, and type B1 in the chat if you believe Black people should come first. B1, put that in the chat. All right. So Nicole, all right. So first of all, so people can understand that you're not just somebody just yapping on the internet, because we got a lot of yappers out here. You're not a yapper. You're an experienced professional who's been in a lot of boardrooms and a lot of executive spaces over time. Can you tell us about your background as it pertains to what qualifies you to kind of speak on this sort of issue?
Yeah, so I actually met Tavis Smiley when I was working as a chemical engineer. I was looking to move to Huntington, California, and he was regularly every year doing the State of Black America out of Los Angeles, and at the time, and that's when I met him. But I've spent 10 years of my career working as a chemical engineer at the front lines or leading engineers or technical professionals at some level, and then worked in if it were a public company, would be a Fortune 500 company for several years in leadership and development, specifically for operations and IT. spent some time that was in HR, doing recruiting and looking at policy as well. And then in 2012, worked for a global keynote speaker, talking to leaders all over the globe with regard to the best ways to keep drama down in the workplace. And about 4 years ago, started my own leadership development company. So I train leaders for a living and executives in large corporations and small business owners. And you happen to be one of my most notable clients.
Yes, yes, yeah, and you've taught me a lot, and I have a lot of respect for what you know, and it's really helped me a lot in terms of understanding just how to manage a workplace, and how to deal with some of the issues that come up. And so let's just dive in. Roland Martin was speaking on the situation with Tavis, and Roland's he's a bright guy, and he has his perspective, and I thought that was interesting to hear what Roland might have to say, because I consider Roland and Tavis to be quite similar in terms of what they do as journalists. And so when you saw this lawsuit, this whole thing go down with Tavis and PBS, did you feel that the things that they were accusing him of doing were sort of worthy of them taking that sort of action against him based on what you know?
Yeah, so let's just start here. You've been sued, correct?
Yes, it seems like it's part of the game when it comes to business. People sue.
I remember being so upset the first time I got sued, and someone, I was telling another businesswoman that I was getting sued, and she stuck out her hand to shake my hand, and she's like, "Welcome to the club. You have done something now. When people are suing you, that's how you know you've made it." So I want all you and all of our listeners to just think about, what if, even if you were in a divorce, what if someone only had the documents based on what your opponent was saying? What would they think? And we have to always keep that in our purview, because a one-sided argument is never just an argument. So that's my disclaimer here. It's hard to get the full side of the story just looking at documents, because if you ever were to pull up my case files and just look at what my accusers were saying, you would think I was a horrible person. It's important to see the final judgment. But with that, this looks messy. This looks messy based on the number of allegations, the fact that it looks like people have voicemail messages that they may have saved, that they may have spoken to multiple people about behavior that they were being exposed to. And so that, when people say that they have that kind of evidence, you have to go, yikes, if I were a business owner, it starts to be problematic, because that's how your investigations happen. You go and talk to people. And so when you talk to people and get consistent messages, then it's always kind of bad for the person who is at the other end of the accusation.
Interesting. Okay. So, that's interesting. Okay. So, because you actually struck a chord with that. When you talk about that term being under investigation, that means a lot, right? I mean, the fact that you were targeted, period, and going to be put under additional scrutiny is I mean, that right there is a big strike against you. And for no matter who you are, I think for a Black man, it's almost like a death torch. Like you're almost done when you're accused as a Black man. When you're accused of something, there's a stain that just never goes away. And I don't know how that feels for other people, but I feel that as a Black man, you're kind of done. I knew a professor who was under investigation, did nothing wrong, and the investigation came out clear and clean, and he had to be so squeaky clean to get past it that if he'd had any little blemish, I feel like they would have really went in for the kill. So it's almost like sometimes it feels a little bit like a witch hunt. So how do we sort of look at what happened with Tavis? I didn't feel right about it. I said, okay, he's sleeping with people. Everybody does it. What do you think that they're trying to say that he did wrong?
Yeah, so there's a couple things at play. If I want to just address just the reality in which we live in, when we have Black skin that's considered the stigma, that is considered the weapon, especially when we work inside of other people's organizations. You just have to be vigilant about your own personal protection. And I don't know these women, but if I were advising Tavis, and if he would have asked me for my professional opinion, I would have advised him the same way that I advise all men who are my coaching clients, and that is treat it just like the Catholic Church does currently whenever adults are around children. There's absolutely no reason for you to be alone with a woman, period, just to protect yourself, period. And why am I saying that? Because I've lived on the planet for over 4 decades, and I would make sure that if ever I was in anyone's company, that someone else was there. I would make sure that I'm doing things during regular business hours where nothing could be construed. I would all of my behavior would be such that if my mother were there, I would I would be saying the same things that I would say if my mom were there, just again to protect yourself. Now, you also said another thing when you said, well, everybody's sleeping around. Here's the challenge. Almost all reputable businesses have policy against dating in the workplace. If you don't have a policy against dating in the workplace, you should consider it. One, because it just causes additional drama. Now, it doesn't mean that people can't have romantic relationships, but the moment people are in a reporting relationship, now that romantic relationship has the element of power, and the person with the power, male or female, is the one who can hire and fire, who can decide who gets their promotions or not, who decides who gets a bonus and who doesn't. And then it's just fraternization that could be seen as just like any other kind of nepotism where favoritism is at play, and you want to avoid it, and you want to have policies against it.
Well, one thing that's interesting, I want to hang on or go back to one point you just made earlier when you were talking about the fact that, particularly as a man, I mean, we're talking about what men have to do to protect ourselves for the most part. I mean, nobody's, when you look at the Me Too movement and what's going on in corporate America, I don't see a lot of women getting taken down on this. I see it being mostly men, mostly heterosexual men, right? Even though we know women have sex, gay people have sex, everybody does something at some point, right? But most of the people being taken down are powerful heterosexual men, right? So it's a male female dynamic there. And when you said a second ago, and maybe you can elaborate on this, when you spoke on the fact that you have to be careful, that like, just don't ever go, don't ever put yourself in a position where you're alone with a woman for any reason, to protect yourself, right? It almost creates a sense in me that that you have to watch out. That almost like you are the prey. Like there are predators who can harm you just because you were alone and they went and told a story, right? It's almost like a flip version of when people used to say to a woman, "Don't be alone with a man in his hotel room at 2 o'clock in the morning, or bad things are going to happen." And people criticize that point of view because they said, you're blaming the victim, right? You're victim blaming, right? So and I think that's kind of interesting. I'm not even asking you a question. I'm just making a point. I'm sure you're smart, so I'm sure you have something to say on this. But what I'm told as a man, who would have no interest, and I mean, I've been alone with women, and where nothing happened, nothing was said, but just the fact that somebody says to me, "Look, don't ever even be alone with her, because if she does go tell a lie, it's your fault that she lied on you." That really, I think, almost speaks to the ridiculousness or the insanity of the environment in which we're in right now. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I always want us to be careful, because the Me Too movement is not necessarily about some of what we've turned it into. For case in point, I went to North Carolina A&T as undergraduate. This is part of my undergraduate degree, and we just were the winners at the Celebration Bowl in Atlanta, Aggie Pride. And I was at a party the night before, and it wasn't a party. It was a group of friends in a hotel suite, just getting ready for the game. And I said hello to a gentleman who went to school with me, and he said hello back. And then he shoots his shot, right? And I say, "Nice try," basically, but no thank you. All right. And then he says, well, and he said something else. And then I say, well, that, does it work? Does that usually work for you? Does that line usually work for you? And he says, oh, well, yeah, actually it does. I said, well, not going to work on me. Good to see you, brother. Talk to you later. Right. You fast forward 10 minutes later, I'm sitting down on the couch talking to a group of women, and he puts his private on my shoulder. He has one leg, his left leg is over my shoulder on this side. His right leg is over the back of my shoulder, and he has his entire privates on my shoulder, acting like he's talking to someone over me. Boyce, I would guarantee you that if you were to call him on that he would never even think of that as inappropriate. That he would not align that with assault. Like, dude, you are over the line. And I think those are the kinds of conversations we need to have. I almost feel like we need to have scenario-based learning around this. But in the same regard, now when I get onto an airplane and I'm struggling with my luggage, it's hard to find a man who will get up to help me put my luggage in the overhead compartment because of the Me Too movement. And I'm afraid. And it's like, no, keep your dick off my shoulder. Help me with my luggage. These are very different things. And I think we need to make sure that we help people to understand, one, that those are very different things. Now, what I didn't tell your listeners is that I've grown up in the church my entire life as well. And preachers have known this forever, that there are when you have power, that yes, there are people for whom that power is attractive, and they will try to associate themselves with you, and will lie and say things happened that did not happen if you don't agree to their terms, or if you're not equally attracted, or if things go south. And so ministers, as part of their training, are taught to not be alone with women they are counseling very often. And some of this is ridiculous because, not every man is attracted to women, and women are, we're not all heterosexual even. So that's a whole nother situation. But when you have power, it comes with greater responsibility, which all you have to do is be the boss. And there you have power. You have a greater responsibility to be more vigilant. And that's not new. That is not today's environment. That is, you have to just think about, should I have just a window on my office door for when I invite people in? Because some of what people are being accused of, and I'm not talking about Mr. Smiley here, but you don't have pants on when someone comes into your office. Come on. You're inviting people over to your home and you don't have pants on. Boyce, if you and I are working together, there's zero reason for you not to have pants on when I'm coming to have a professional conversation with you. And those are some of the things that are listed in these allegations.
Yeah, well, first of all, before I respond to that, I want to tell everybody I'm talking to Nicole Price. She's the author of the book Lively Paradox. And your website is livelyparadox.com, correct?
That's correct.
Livelyparadox.com. She's a leadership expert. And also, we're talking about Tavis Smiley and his ongoing battle with PBS. It just got messy. PBS just released the results of their investigation, and it got pretty messy. And I encourage you guys to go Google it and read the details if you're into that kind of thing. Do me a favor, please hit the thumbs up button, share, and subscribe button. Also, just a reminder, guys, I'll be in New Orleans later on this month. I'm also going to be in Oakland pretty soon, as well as some other places. So if you want to know what's going on, go to drboyceseminars.com. That's drboyceseminars.com. New Orleans is sold out, but we're going to put a live stream in there. So if you guys want to check that out, it'll be a live stream. So let me just say this. As you were talking, I think that you're right. I when I hear about something that crazy, like a guy, answering the door with no pants on, right? I accept, obviously, that you do have those guys that will do crazy, inappropriate things like what you said, where the guy put his, what on your shoulder, like, ain't cool, right? We know that's not cool. I think, in fact, if that's not cool, I want you guys in the chat to say that's not cool. Say not cool, right? Because I want everybody to be clear where we stand. We're not condoning any ridiculous behavior on the part of anybody. If she don't like you, then step away, right? Step away. What it becomes challenging are those fuzzy situations, right? Like, when I think about a guy answering the door with his pants off, let's say that he is he's a normal dude. He's not a guy that's going to answer the door with his pants off for any pretty woman. I almost wonder, I'm always like, did these two have a relationship? And maybe one of them is deciding that it's over and the other person is still trying to take their shot, right? Or there's a level of comfort that's been established because there was something that occurred, right? Because a lot of times when these relationships, both people don't exit at the same time, right? One person says, okay, I'm done with you. Like I'm just thinking about my own life as an example. I remember there was a woman that that I knew, and I knew her through business. This was many years ago. And I remember that there was a point where we had some time together. So I would say we had some quality time. And then I was like, I'm not interested anymore, right? I'd moved on with my life. Well, she was still laying it on pretty thick. I mean, sending me text messages that would have been considered pretty inappropriate, if you know what I mean. Saying things to me that could be defined as a form of harassment, right? Doing things that if I were a woman and she were a man, I could probably make her look like the biggest predator on the planet. But because I'm a man, and maybe this is just, a type of privilege you get, by being a woman versus a man. But, I think that if I were a woman, I think I could probably, like call the cops, right? Really. I mean, but because I'm a man, I didn't see it as a threat. It's like, oh yeah, put your clothes back on, or just stop that. You know what I mean? And so I think it's sort of like, I think that's where it becomes kind of weird, right? We know that people spend more time in the workplace than almost anywhere else. We know that workplace relationships are going to happen. In fact, anybody in this chat right now, answer this question real quick. Yes or no? Have you ever had a relationship with somebody you work with? Yes or no? Have you ever dated somebody you work with? A lot of people do it. So when you have these fuzzy situations and then somebody tries to give you a scenario that's completely out of context, and on top of that, it's already he said, she said, but it's also out of context. They're not telling you what was going on before that happened. How do you sort it out? I mean, it seems almost impossible to do. It's like we're regulating something that is very difficult to regulate, don't you think?
Yeah. So let's talk about the difference between regulation and then policy and then just what's not good practice. So it is not illegal to date someone at work. Date someone at work if you want to. That's not illegal. You have not broken any laws. You can sleep with whomever you want at work as long as it's consensual, and you have not broken the law until you do something to someone they don't want them to want to be done. Now, what's not a good policy practice is to date people at work, because when it goes south, Dr. Boyce, therein lies the problem. Let's imagine that woman kept doing that every day, multiple times a day. Let's imagine now you're engaged to someone else. Let's imagine now your soon-to-be wife sees these messages and she still won't stop. It is harassment. And at that point, as a guy, you should take that to HR and have something done about it. Men might choose not to, just like men don't report sexual assault. That doesn't mean you're not being harassed. You're absolutely being harassed. It's harassment. And I want to make this delineation. When you're at the same level and you're dating in the workplace, there's a whole lot less drama than when you, again, add in the power structure, which Mr. Smiley had because he was the boss or because he was the owner of his business. Therein lies the problem. When you are responsible for people's paychecks, whether or not they get bonuses, whether or not they get promotions, now are they sleeping with you because they want to or because they think they have to? It's kind of like Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson. People try to make that a romance. Maybe she did like him, but did she like him because she had to? Like, did she have a choice? And when it starts to be fuzzy and there's no way to know whether or not I'm forced to or not, that's a clear indication for you that if you really want that man or that woman, let's find a different place to work.
Well, I'll tell you what, I do agree with you in the sense of, in terms of the reality of it, right? In fact, that's one of the reasons why I've always advocated for Black men to start your own businesses and be very careful about almost everything you do, because I just think the culture's kind of taken a weird turn, and I don't. It's challenging for men, for a lot of the men I know that I talk to. I'm talking about guys who kind of who I don't think. I mean, again, you never know, would ever do anything inappropriate. But then again, you never know until you know, right? You don't know what people do in private versus public. But under the assumption.
Well, and I think you would be surprised at what well-meaning men think is okay when they are not under the scrutiny of public eye.
I do
I
agree.
could tell you some stories that would make you cringe. The the penis on my shoulder is just one.
Well, you know what's funny is I actually had an event in Louisville, actually, my hometown, and there was a lady who waited. That what I noticed, I didn't know this, but I didn't even know professors had groupies, but apparently we do. And there was a lady, and what they do, here's what they do. Here's the groupie game. A lot of times, not every time, but they wait until the very end. They wait till everybody's gone, and then they come up so they can have more time with you. So this lady waited, let the whole line go through all the people getting their book signed, gone through 100 and some people, and she waited till the very end, and then she comes up and she puts her boobs on my shoulder, right? And she's right up on
Was
me. And
she just hugging you?
what'd you say?
I said, was she just hugging you?
You know, it was a
See what I
special.
did there?
It was a very special kind of hug. I'll just say that. And I, and so I think, I mean, you're right. I think, people sometimes people do things they shouldn't do. And I remember, the reaction was pretty quick. I walked away. My manager pulled me away. I wasn't interested. I just kind of laughed it off. Obviously, if I were a woman, it'd be a different kind of thing. And I expect that. I accept that.
Maybe you might have liked it.
That is true. That is true. And I think that, the weird thing is that we know that love and attraction is not a one-way street, right? We know it's not,
Okay.
it's one of those things where, if you think about this, right? If a grown man who's say 23 years old sleeps with a 16-year-old, right? We know that that's illegal. We know that that's going to be defined as rape. We know that that's inappropriate. We know that no matter what she says to him, no matter how hard she laid it on, no matter how much
Right.
she puts it, it's his responsibility to make sure nothing happens. Well, it's almost like we're getting to the point where she ain't got to be 16 no more. Now she could be 36. And if you are the boss, if you are a powerful man who's, and that's the hard part, right? Women are attracted to wealthy, powerful men. That ain't never going to change. And you're spending 80 hours a week together at the job, and you've got women that are attracted to the wealthy, powerful man that's in the office, and they're laying it on thick. We're basically saying, and it sounds to me like, no matter how much she says to you, no matter how much she wants it, no matter how much she approaches you, it is your responsibility to say no and to walk away from that. And I think that's kind of a tough thing to ask people to do, to basically shut down everything that's inside of them when it comes to, the natural aspect of reproduction, right? Like, would it be appropriate to tell a woman that you are not allowed to ever fall in love? You're spending the majority of your time in the workplace. You are never allowed to be attracted or to have lust or love for somebody you work with. And if we catch you ever having lust for a man that you work with, we are going to destroy you. That almost seems like it's doomed to fail. I don't see how that's going to
Yeah.
work.
Well, I don't think that's what people are telling you. I think as people are telling you is that as long as everybody's good, you're good. But the moment at which somebody's not good, then you're taking a risk. Therein lies the problem. And so I have a very close friend who said to me, well, there are people who like to sleep their way to the top, and they're all complicit in this. Well, that's just it. If I want to sleep my way to the top, that's my business. And if I want to sleep with powerful men so that I can get things from powerful men, that's my business. The point at which it's a problem is that when powerful men expect me to sleep with them so that I can get what I deserve just because of what's going on between my head versus what's going on between my legs, that's the difference. And we want to conflate these things and mix them all up, and they're not the same. Boyce, I would, if we could get people to just sit down and be honest, and let's have real conversations, because that's where this gets resolved. Let's stop talking about rhetorical situations and famous people, and let's just sit down and have a forum. I'm all for it. So let's just talk about, hey, what have you done that that you're like, that might have been a little inappropriate? Because I can tell you that I once was going to take a job in Georgia for something that I really wanted to do. And this brother was very clear that I should come and visit him first. I was like, oh, okay, well, my husband and I will come down. And he's like, you should come alone. Come on, Doc. Come on, we all know what that means. And if I'm desperate, which at that time was not, I don't. What do I do? And so if I go and I do it, and what do I go and I act like I don't like it? No. If I want the job, I go and I act like I like it, and then now I have the job, and then you hope that I don't say anything about it. And I think this is a little more pervasive than we want to be honest about, because I know that I have this face that says, don't even try me. You've known me long enough to know that I do. And so I'm thinking, if my lived experiences and the number of times that it's happened to me, and I have a don't even try me face, I can't even imagine what happens to someone who happens to be slim in the waist and, thick everywhere else and smiles all the time. I don't give people that. I don't give people that energy, and it happens to me a lot. And so I can't even imagine what it's like for people who do tend to invite people into their space a little more freely than I do.
Well, I think that's a great point. And I hear you. I mean, it sounds really, I'm not a woman, but I've heard enough stories from women to know that there are men who behave in ways that are just not cool. And I want everybody to know, every guy that's watching, I'm not supporting any of that nonsense at all. So what really baffles me in terms of, and I don't even know if there's a solution to this issue, but what I really see is this, Nicole. Maybe you can sort this out for me, right? If there is a powerful man who says, look, the job is yours or the money is yours, but I just need some sex. I want some sex, right? We know that that's wrong. We know that's not cool. You can't do that, right? But what if there's a situation where a woman says, here's some sex. Let's start having sex. And then you start having sex. And then she says, oh, by the way, I want the job now. And you say, well, no, I slept with you because I like you. I didn't sleep with you because I want to hire you, give you money, or make you the star of my next movie. I just like you as a person. But let's say she says, no, I expect there to be a trade. I'm giving it up to you. So I expect that when you're picking the lead actress in your next movie, it better be me, right? Because I'm the one who's paying the highest price. I've made the sacrifice for this. And wouldn't that be equally inappropriate, right? Right? Like, what if a man could prove, look, I met this lady, I liked her, we started sleeping together, and now she's trying to basically extort money, a job, or an opportunity out of me because we were sleeping together? Wouldn't that be equally egregious to a man asking for his own version of an indecent proposal, right? What do you think about that?
I think it's equally as wrong, but the challenge is it's not the power dynamics have not shifted.
Well,
you still are the one who can offer the job, though.
But you don't think women have power? I think women have a lot of power. You don't think women have power?
Wow. You went to me saying women don't have power. You can change this to same sex if you want to. You can change this to the woman being the hiring manager and the man doing the same thing. The person who is the hiring manager, so we'll just take off pronouns and gender and just say the hiring manager is the one in power. And that's why most businesses have policy against hiring managers having consensual sexual relationships one way or the other. The other thing I would say is different about the scenario you just mentioned. The person doesn't work for you yet. They don't belong to this company at all.
Okay, I'm going to say this. I'll say this, right? Alicia does not work for me, right? But she has a lot of power over me, right? It's not financial power or some sort of professional power, but she does have a certain type of power. So I guess the reason I brought up that example is because literally
you love her.
Right, there you go. And so the reason I threw that example up is because I'm thinking about causality, right? Like, if you want the job, then I want the sex. But it's sort of like, if you want to keep the sex, then I must have the job. It almost seems that we're quick to punish if it goes in one direction, but if the power dynamic goes in the other direction, we don't. And I would just argue this. I would advocate for the fact, in defense of men, because remember, men are the only ones being taken down, but we know men are not the only bad guys out here, right? There are bad guys that are both male and female. I hope we can all at least see that, right? We know that there are manipulative people on both sides of the gender spectrum and everything in between, right? And so,
And I would argue, you say men are the only ones being taken down. I would say, in my experience in HR, that's not accurate.
Okay.
So, but keep going.
I think that it comes down to the idea that I think just in general as a society, right? When men are sort of, when we look at what men tend to want the most, right? Chris Rock made that joke where he said everything men work for, all the money, they go out and they become millionaires and they work their butts off. Also, they can have more sex. They just want more women to want them, right? So that's why they go and work hard and become the boss and become powerful and everything else. And so I think that it's sort of, in this environment, it's like you're telling men, okay, when it's time for you to feel like you're going to cash in on whatever power you have, we better not catch you. And no one had better not say anything negative about you, right? Even if they agreed, even if it was consensual, if they come back and they rewrite history, rewrite the situation, then you're done. We're going to take their word for it. We're going, there's no he said, she said at this point, because you're the one in power. Therefore, you're the one who's completely responsible for any negative feelings that come out of this situation. I think that's a little unfair.
Well, Boyce, I'll just tell you that if you want the scenario whereby you get to pay people for sex, because that's kind of what we're saying. I have so much money and power, so I want to have sex with you. Create your own little Hugh Hefner business and make that your policy. And people will sign up for that, and there's no problem at all. Like, what would a woman look like coming back and saying Hugh Hefner like sexually assaulted them, or I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had to sleep with Hugh Hefner in order to be able to keep my job. Yes, you did. And so if you want to create that kind of workplace where that's what you want to happen, then make it completely okay, and that be part of your policy, and that's the way you get down. But if you sell cups for a living, it's not a good idea to have people fraternizing in the workplace. I mean, I do whatever you want to do. It's just not a good idea. And I think what's interesting is that the movement has been titled Me Too. And the movement was titled Me Too because Black women in particular were being assaulted and no one was listening. And I can attest to that. And what has happened, as with almost every other movement we start, the narrative gets twisted, the movement gets hijacked, and now we're saying folks are telling you can't have consensual sex with people ever. And that is not what is happening. There have been, if you have had a business in the 20th or the 21st century, from the Society of Human Resources Management, it has been good policy practice to prevent fraternizing at work. And if you're going to sleep with someone at work, it's probably a good idea, if the relationship is turning serious, after 3 to 6 months, to tell your boss that you're sleeping together. Almost every reputable company, and if they don't have this, they would be advised to have it, would say that as the moment at which that is a reporting relationship, that somebody has got to find a new job. So we're going to move you to a different division. We're going to move you or him to a different state. But there's not going to be a situation in which there's power dynamics at play and people are having sex with each other. It is not good practice, because now the line is blurred. Are you having sex because you want to? Are you having sex because you want to get paid and you feel like you're being forced? And that line we cannot cross. And I'll just go back to my time in the church. This is not new. Women clergy and female and male clergy have been advised forever that if you're going to counsel a young woman or a young man, that you do so during the church open hours. You would have a window, and your office door does not have no windows. You have windows. Someone else is just outside, so that everyone is on the up and up, and to keep people, keep your hands to yourself, keep your comments to yourself. And even with that, people still cross the line. And so I wish we could regulate all of these things. We cannot. Some of these are just kind of the human condition. But I stand by what I said before, which is we need to have kind of a scenario-based kind of training that says, all right, here's the situation. What's the next move you make? You know what I mean? So you say, all right, Dr. Boyce Watkins, Dr. Nicole Price has requested a meeting with you. She's going to be in, let's say, Chicago, and you're in Chicago. So Nicole wants to meet for happy hour to talk about a business deal. Dr. Boyce, what are your best options? A, suggest meeting for coffee instead. B, say yes, let's meet for happy hour and invite Alicia. C, just go to happy hour. This is dumb. Which one is the best idea? And just have people pick, and because there's no right answer, but there are better answers.
Mm. Yeah, I think that I'll just say this, I'll be honest and say that I know for a fact I dodged a landmine or two, by basically keeping distance between myself and women that come and work with us. Because I know the reality. The reality is that you have women that want to get close to you, and if they don't get their way, they will shift the narrative that makes you look a way that they think black men behave, right? So literally, I almost see it like almost the way Robin Givens might have felt when she was dating Mike Tyson. If she chose to be alone with Mike Tyson, you're putting your life on the line, because if he loses his damn mind, decides to punch you out, you might die that day. There'll be nobody there to protect you. And I feel that way, honestly, as a so-called quote unquote powerful black man, whatever it is that I'm supposed to be. I feel like if I go into a private space with a woman, even when nobody's there to confirm or deny whatever happened in that room, I am very vulnerable. So, just as a general protective mechanism, I keep a buffer. I keep women that specifically protect me from those situations. And and I can say for a fact that there was one woman who did try to go and publicly say, "Oh, well, we were private," or he tried to do this, tried to say that, and I was able to come back and say, "No, I was never in a room with her by myself ever, deliberately." And honestly, when I reflect on that, it was because I felt like she was a person that wanted to get close to me, and I deliberately kept my distance. And I think the thing that probably bothered me about that is that I said, here, I'm not trying to hurt anybody, but I got to run around constantly on the defensive because people are believing people just because they say something. I don't believe that. I think that's the fundamental issue, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, stop believing stuff just because somebody said it. You need to have proof. If we go back to just the basics of having proof, then everything's good. Whatever you believe, prove it. Present some text messages, phone calls, record, whatever it is you got to prove, lay something out there, but don't just get into this whole thing like, oh, it's true because somebody said it. I think that's where the Me Too movement lost a lot of its momentum. It was a good idea in the beginning when Tarana Burke first came up with it. It was a very much needed thing. But when you get to the point where everybody and anybody can run around and just say anything and people gonna believe it just because you said it, I can't co-sign on that. What are your thoughts?
So tell me, Boyce, how do I prove that the gentleman in Georgia asked me to have sex with him so that I can get that job assignment?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's a recording. Maybe there's
something. Why would I have been recording him?
I don't know.
I wasn't.
Or maybe it goes back to what you said. The same thing, the same rule you said that it would apply to men, right? That says, look, in some situations, there's some stuff that can't be proven. It's like when you go to a certain city, the police will say, look, if you come to the parade in downtown where everybody's there, we can protect you. But if you go to these certain areas, we can't protect you anymore. So if you want to stay safe, stay over here. If you go over here, we'll try to protect you, but we can't guarantee your safety at that point, right? So I think that there's some situations, I think we have to acknowledge that there's some situations where our safety can't be guaranteed. Like if I decide to go into a room alone with a woman and I do nothing wrong, my safety can't be guaranteed. I can't be guaranteed that she's not going to come out and tell a story. So I have to do preventative maintenance to make sure that we don't even get in that situation. I think that if this guy said something that's inappropriate, sometimes it's just something we have to deal with. Like, again, just like you were saying earlier, a man who decides to have a relationship with a woman he works with, if they report that, somebody's just going to have to go get another job. So perhaps if I know that there's somebody who runs a company that is engaged in inappropriate behavior, perhaps that means that that's not the company for me. I got to go find a different job. Right. I mean, again, I'm not criticizing your particular situation. I'm not telling you that you were wrong.
No, it was a question.
I'm laying out exactly the argument that was made earlier, right? That if it's not working for you, if something's happening that's not making you comfortable, or whatever, then sometimes you just gotta walk away, right? Is that okay to say? Like, is it okay? Like, because people will say that to me. Like, look, if you're attracted to a woman and you work with her and you want to sleep with her, that means you got to quit your job and walk away. It's not okay for you to be attracted to this woman. It's not okay for this to happen, right? Well, why can't we say the same thing to women? That look, if you're in a space where a man is acting a damn fool and he can't keep his thing in his pants, or he's trying to get some ass instead of doing the work, then go find a different job, right?
Yeah. I feel like, and feel is the right word. Everything else I've said has been based on the 20 plus years in the industry, but this is just my feeling right now. I feel like we're having a reverse racism kind of conversation here right now. Prejudice is a thing, discrimination is a thing, but it doesn't become a social power problem or an oppressive issue until you have institutional power and control. And to act like men don't have institutional power and control in this country is, I mean, that's just not rooted and grounded in fact. And so, I get that in these particular situations, especially for Black men, I can say almost anything about a Black man that's negative and people will believe me because racism, right? Do I need to say any other words? But in that same regard, what I would love to see is that Black men would respect and honor us because now I'm shifting, right? I'm adding race to this discussion because, I live in the city of Kansas City, and for where one of my properties is located, I can see a white woman running up and down the street all day long, pushing strollers. Nobody is going to say or do anything to that white woman because white supremacy. We understand that if you do something to a white woman, that there's a certain amount of consequences that are going to come with doing something to that white woman. I can walk down my street with a 170-pound dog with a pistol in my pocket, and somebody is going to try me. Why the difference? Why the difference? Give me the same amount. If white people are no better than Black people, give Black women the same amount of respect that you give white women, regardless of if you know that you're going to get a consequence or not. And that's where I think sometimes I feel like, and feel again is the right word, where y'all abandon us sometimes. Where it's like, yeah, these sisters just out here to get us. No, brother. Some of y'all out here being predators, and you are doing things that you would not do if your wife or your mother were watching. And I think that is the conversation that needs to be had. And we need to have it with our friends. We need to have it with our sons. We need to have it with our brothers, our cousins, so that folks understand where the line is. I have been since I was 9 years old telling men no vehemently. Mm-hmm. And it's like, come on, I will let you know if I want you. I will let you know. I promise.
Yes. Well, I see as Nicole speaking, and I see all your comments, and a lot of people are agreeing and some are disagreeing. And what I like is that I saw one brother said, I respectfully disagree. And I think the key idea that we're getting back to is respect, right? I think that anybody in here who respects Black women, I'm just going to tell you, since I'm a little bit older than some of you that are in here, show respect. Seriously, man. Like if she, real women, I mean, good women appreciate a little persistence, but when you get to the point where you're harassing a woman, that is not cool. And I think that I agree with you. I think that as Black men, when we see a man that is harassing a woman, we should also intervene as well. I think that we are letting women down because not just because of the behavior that's happening, but because of what we sort of sit back and watch, and we allow these things to happen, and it's okay. So, for example, in the hip hop music industry, when it kind of went left and just started really sort of licensing the blanket disrespect of Black women, we should all be offended by that. And it is crazy. And I think that, simultaneously, I think out of the respect that for those of us that do respect women and the strength of women, and the fact that many of us might have grown up in spaces where I never grew up allowed to even think that women were somehow subordinated or inferior to men. Because in my space, my grandma had the power, my mama had the power, my sister had a certain amount of power. I didn't really see a space where women were down here and men were up here. Although so I had to learn to understand that, right? But seeing the environment I grew up in, a lot of other men grow up the same way, where we're not going to be the guy who's going to ask a woman out 85,000 times or put our penis on her shoulder or all this other crazy stuff. I think some of us feel, like we're under attack. Like it almost seems like sometimes because you're mad at the aggressive men out here, you're mad at the rapists, you're mad at the harassers, you're mad at the assaulters. Sometimes the guys that get beat up on are the nice guys. It's almost like relationships. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, where you have a relationship. Anybody ever had a relationship with a really angry person? So they're really pissed off at the person who screwed them over. So they walk all over you because you're actually nice to them. That old saying, hurt people hurt people. That's what it makes me think about, right? Because it's crazy to me that that there have been situations where I know that I wasn't doing anything bad or inappropriate, and I got this weird reaction that just didn't make any sense. Like, oh, you're attacking, you're doing this, you're doing that. I'm like, I'm not trying to do anything. I'm trying to defend myself, right? So by defending myself, I end up being labeled in specific ways that are just unfair. Even with the stuff with last week with Lizzo or whatever, how people tried to twist that into a gender thing. And I was like, no, we should stop celebrating obesity because it's killing us. We should stop celebrating the mammy Jezebel stereotype of the Black woman. So I stuck to my guns because I'm defending the image of the Black woman. I'm defending us against the minstrel shows that have debased our image throughout the world. But then it gets flipped into this, like he's fat shaming a woman and attacking women. And so therefore he's the most sexist prick on the planet. And basically that makes me say, well, fuck all of y'all, seriously, because that wasn't what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it gets confused. I mean,
yeah. Well, I'm glad you actually brought the Lizzo thing up, because I gotta say, I was like, Boyce, come on, because I consider you are my client, but I also consider you a friend. I'm looking forward to my invitation from the wedding. And so this is said with all the love and care and concern in my heart. The moment at which you lost 50 pounds, now you're not in the position to call somebody fat. It's almost, I end up in these conversations all the time where I'm like, white people, sorry, you can't talk bad about Black people. Rich people, sorry, you can't talk bad about poor people. Straight people, nope, you can't talk bad about gay people. It's like we want to act like social power structures don't exist, and they do. And when you have power, you have to be responsible with that power, or else you will look like an absolute ass. And so I'm sure that there are people who want to disagree with that, and you can disagree with my opinion all day long, but facts cannot be agreed with or disagreed with. This is fact. So you can give me evidence-based facts to disprove what I'm saying, but I can give you peer-reviewed scholarly article after article about social power structure. And you tell me who of the Fortune 500 companies in the United States of America, how many of them are female run? 35. How many should be? 250. How many of your governors are female? I'll tell you, less than 20%. How many of your congressional seats are held up by women? And when you add in the Senate, it is woefully terrible. How many of your police officers are female? How many of I could keep going down the line. You cannot call yourself oppressed until it's backed with institutional power and control. And if you say that is not true, then tell me what's wrong with us then. Like, what's the problem with Black people? And I'm like, there ain't no problem with Black people, except for we think there's something wrong with Black people. And the way this system is set up, we don't have the social power. And the only reason I say that is because we're coming after 500 years worth of people making the color a stigma. And so I'm not saying that in your home that you and your soon-to-be wife are not on equal footing with power. I'm not saying that. Absolutely. Every single rule is outlined by exceptions. We can't respond to exceptions. We have to respond to the rule. That's why we can't fix some of these problems. Here's what I'm advocating for. I'm advocating for two things. One, real conversations, not hypothetical ones. And two, let's have scenario-based conversations to talk about, all right, what would you do in this situation, to just kind of help people understand? Because I believe that for all the times that I have been sexually assaulted, that the person was a well-meaning person, that if I said, all right, let me just record this right now and play this back to you in front of your mama, in front of your wife, and let's see would you make the same choice. And the answer is no. Now
Mm.
that's my opinion, and somebody can disagree with that last point.
Well, you know what? Well, I'll tell you what. And I know I see some of your comments, and I see some of you love it, some of you don't. But I'm gonna tell you why I welcome this conversation. I want to make it clear on this platform, it's okay to disagree. I'm not here to have everybody that comes on agree with everything I say, and I don't want every viewer to agree with everything I say. That doesn't make for a good conversation. The reason I enjoy talking to Nicole, even when we disagree, is because I respect her opinion. I know that her intentions are good, and I think that's the dividing line. If you ever want to know the difference between someone with a difference of opinion versus somebody I don't really mess with or talk to, I look at your intentions and I try to say, okay, what are you really trying to do here? And are you really trying to achieve understanding, or are you just trying to be divisive and nasty and ugly and everything else? And I know that she's trying to achieve understanding. So I know that, and in fact, in my family, I actually have people in my family that that might be in that feminist category, things like that. And it's great to have those conversations because they help me see my blind spots, right? So I'm open to having someone tell me that I have a blind spot. That don't mean I got to accept it, though. That don't, so some of the stuff I might take, some of the stuff I might walk away from, and I'm sure you do the same thing. And that's why it's a good conversation. So I encourage you guys to do the same thing. Go talk to the Trump supporter in your family if you love them enough to find out why they might have voted for Trump. I got Trump supporters in my family. I love to talk to them because I like hearing other points of view. Okay. So anyway, so I want to say thank you, Nicole, for your perspective. As a smart Black woman, you are really respected on this platform. And I hope you guys will join me in giving our digital round of applause, a digital thank you for joining the platform. Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate it.
Hey, and now that you're skinny, keep us stickies out your mouth, man.
Keep us stickies.
Yay.
What?
What? You out here running, slimming down. Now you got something to say about those with us a little more round around the waist. Stop it. You ain't even put my blood pressure. Keep my name out. Keep my name out your mouth, skinny mini.
No,
okay?
no. Number one, let me dispel the myth. Let me dispel the myth that I'm skinny. Okay, I'm gonna just kill that myth right now. I am not skinny. I still it's like when you get in your 40s, you get a stomach and it will not go away. So that's one myth. The myth that I'm in this great shape. That is a complete lie. Now, I did my African picture where I had on the African tribal dress and I had a bicep showing. And apparently I heard I broke the internet with that because people got a chance to see what, the results of my weight training, right? So I was sexy for about 30 seconds, but I'm not normally a sexy guy. But here's the thing. I want to make one thing abundantly clear too about the Lizzo discussion. When I was talking about, I really wasn't talking about Lizzo. I wasn't even blaming Lizzo for the fact that Lizzo has to be Lizzo. I was really talking about white supremacy, and because I have a hard time believing that Lizzo always twerked while she was playing the flute. I believe that the twerking while fluting and all that stuff was added in to be part of the circus, right? I think that she's very talented. She's a great singer, great performer, obviously a great musician. And I feel like, my question is, why can't that be enough? Like, you can have artists like Victory Boyd out here, who's going to sing at the wedding, by the way, who is such a magical singer that Jay-Z heard her sing and he signed her on the spot. She's performed with Kanye many, many times, and Victory is she to me is Lizzo without the circus. But, Victory will never get the same attention that a Lizzo gets because people like that. They like, again, the Mammy Jezebel minstrel show. And I'm not blaming her because she's simply, surviving in an environment that was created by somebody else. So ironically, as much as people think that I hate Lizzo, I don't hate Lizzo because I see the bigger picture. I hate the environment, not Lizzo.
Gotcha. So you think she's evolved into an entertainer that's not her natural entertaining self? And I know we've gotten off topic, but I was just trying to be clear.
Yeah, she's basically Cardi B and Tiffany Haddish in a fat suit. That's what she is. I mean, that's what she's become. And there's a formula, right? Number one, you have to.
I don't think fat suit was necessary, but okay.
I know that was just me being a prick, but still, it is what it is.
Absolutely being a prick.
But keeping it real.
Better.
Come on now. That's a big. Even she calls herself the fat bitch. She said, "I love being that fat bitch." She has said that. So if she calls herself a fat bitch, what's wrong with me calling her a fat? Well, I'm gonna call her fat.
Okay. But here's what I'm saying though, Boyce. You crack me up because I know you're smart. I know I know you're smart. You know that in groups call themselves things all the time that other people not in that group can call them. You know that.
And that's
don't get
stupid.
on here in front of your listeners. Stop starting to act like you don't know what I'm talking about.
And I do think that's crazy though. I think that's a little weird. Like where every black rapper we can call ourselves nigga all day long. And then when a white person repeats the same lyrics that we were just saying over and over again, we gonna get mad. I'm gonna just tell y'all right now, I think that's stupid. I mean, I don't say nothing about it, but I think that's weird. If you're gonna beat up the white boy because he literally just recited exactly what you said about yourself, maybe you're not a nigga. Maybe you ever think about that? Maybe you shouldn't go around parading yourself to be something other than what you actually are. Right? I
don't make a point of using the term just because I understand what it meant to my grandmother and my great grandmother in Coahoma County, Mississippi, and I think sometimes what we have become insensitive to, and when I say we, I'm just talking about the larger U.S. society, is that sometimes when something is offensive to someone, it's okay not to do it because it's offensive to someone else. This whole, you only live once and it's my life and it's empathy, really. Just a little bit of empathy goes a long way to be concerned about your impact on someone else. And honestly, we are regularly asking people to do the same for us. And so I don't know. I'm not gonna advocate. You're not gonna find me publicly or privately advocating for the use of the N-word. But what you will find me advocating for is the breakdown of white supremacy, which means white people have multiple groups in which we cannot, where they have words and terms that they call each other, that if we're not in that group, we can't call them that. And so equal footing is equal footing. That's what it is. They don't get more privileges than we do.
Well, I'll tell you what, in this space, our solution to white supremacy is educate your own kids, create your own businesses, support your own businesses, and then you can get away from that a little bit. I mean, you can't ever get completely away from it, but I'll tell you what, when I was in Ghana, I didn't feel white supremacy, even though colonialism's there.
Hey, I got a bone to pick with you, by the way, that I didn't get to come on that trip, but that's okay. I didn't even get a
Well, you know
request.
what? Well, check this out. The Black Business School did just expand to South Africa. So how about this? I'll talk to you about the South Africa trip because we are going to go down to South Africa.
Are we having a conference there in South Africa?
We probably should. We should probably do something in South Africa. And I don't think you need a visa to go to South Africa, right? You can just go with your passport, right? So maybe.
Now, are you going to be in one of the big cities, Cape Town, Johannesburg?
Johannesburg. That's where our office is going to be, Johannesburg.
Okay, so conference in Johannesburg, a keynote speaking. See, I like it when you do this, then I get to say what I want. I want to be the keynote speaker at that event.
Yes, ma'am. Well, you know what? Well, I wanted to be known that I have a lot of respect for Nicole Price, and so it's gonna get done. And she actually spoke at the All Black National Convention. You did a really good job. And
thank you.
So everybody who's here, please join me in thanking Nicole for her time. Her book is called Lively Paradox. Her website is livelyparadox.com. And so also, if you could share this conversation, we'd appreciate it. And last but not least, if you want to get started in your wealth building journey, go check us out at theblackbusinessschool.com. You can actually get started for free. So this year, I want you to buy some shares of stock for your kids. I want you to go ahead and start that business. I want you to go ahead and move forward with your life. That's what we want you to do. 2020 will be your greatest year ever. I declare it and decree it right now. It will be the greatest year you've ever had. And this will be the greatest decade in the history of Black people around the world. If you agree, say yes in the chat. Just say I agree so that we can go move on and go kick some butt. Because white supremacy is going to be a thing in the past because Black supremacy is going to be on the menu next. I ain't going to call it Black supremacy, but that's what they're going to call it because Black people are taking over in this decade. So take care, guys. Love you. And thank you, Nicole, for your time. I appreciate it. All right. See you guys soon. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.